Good morning, everybody. Welcome to Grandy and Associates Business Advantage webinar this morning. Our guest speaker this morning is Debbie Sardone with 8 reasons your business isn't working. We'll be starting the webinar here in just a couple minutes. Thanks. And welcome everybody to, again, Grandy and Associates Business Advantage webinar of the month. Our speaker this morning is Debbie Sardone. Debbie Sardone is an author, speaker, and cleaning business owner. She's a global consultant helping entrepreneurs to fix their businesses. Debbie also owns speedcleaning.com, an online cleaning products retailer, and she's the founder of Cleaning for a Reason. It's a nonprofit organization providing free cleaning services to women battling cancer. And with that, we'll start our webinar this morning, 8 reasons your business isn't working. Debbie? Looks like we have a slight, Debbie, looks like your mic might still be muted if you want to click on that.
Why? Can you hear me now?
I can hear you now. All right. Go ahead, Debbie. We're ready for you.
Okay, my apologies. Thank you so much for asking me. I absolutely love doing these training sessions with your organization, and hopefully we'll get some new ideas and help for business owners everywhere. So 8 reasons your business isn't working. Coco Chanel said, "Success is most often achieved by those who don't know that failure is inevitable." So if your business isn't working, there are quite a few solutions, as long as you don't quit before you give up, which is really one of the biggest issues with entrepreneurs, is we just kind of lose heart, give up, and the solutions are there. We just think that it's too late or it's impossible. So first reason why so many businesses aren't working, and one thing I want to remind everybody is sometimes the principles are too simple for us to embrace. And we think that our problems are complex and there's some deep, dark, complex solution. And we miss that the simplest solutions oftentimes are the very thing we needed to do or change or hear. So don't discount these. Realize how it's the little things that add up in your business to either ensure it does work or ensure it will not work. So the first thing I wrote down is a lack of marketing. It seems so simple, but so many business owners treat marketing like it's an expense, and they think of it as an expense. So they're constantly making the excuse, it doesn't work, and for what it costs me, it's not worth it. Or, gosh, I can't really afford that. I know I should do marketing, but I can't afford it. Maybe next year. What you don't understand, it's not really a cost. It just feels like it. Marketing is how you get to that revenue that you're trying to get to. Marketing is how you get to that level where you say, oh, when I get there, I can afford it. Well, you're not going to get there if you're not doing marketing. Basically, if you don't market, you will die. And I think the problem with small business owners and business owners who were startups, and the owner was a technician in the beginning. Maybe they quit their former company that they worked for because they felt like, gosh, I could do this better for and get the whole payment. And so they started out as a technician, and their business grew based on referral only. And they have this mentality that, well, I got to this level without any marketing. People refer me all the time. You know, it must be the economy. It must be this. Oh, it's too many competitors out there. The answer, if your business isn't working, is oftentimes found in your lack of marketing. Market or die. Market or shrink. If you're not spending time, money, and effort to marketing, your business will not work. It definitely will not grow. It'll get stalled at a certain place. You can afford to market if you understand return on investment, or ROI. We all can afford it. Now, maybe we start out small. Maybe we build up to a higher marketing budget. I'm not saying overnight you have a budget, but I'm saying a little bit of marketing, a little bit here, a little bit there, and then a little more here, a little more there. Over time, your profits build, your revenues build, and the marketing budget grows. So you can afford it if you understand ROI. I mean, how much does one new customer bring to your company? Generally, that's going to more than pay for the marketing dollars that you've spent to get that customer in the door. And then with marketing, consistency is the key. I mean, so many business owners are marketing their business when they're in crisis. So many business owners find themselves upside down in their revenue, or, oh my goodness, we've shrunk so much, how are we going to pay our rent or meet our payroll? And so as a reaction to a crisis, they start marketing. Marketing has to be consistent for it to be effective. It is not a start and stop process. It's just like with your business. You don't start and stop quality. Well, when we're desperate and hurting for a customer, we do a better job. No. In business, you do a good job or an excellent job day in, day out, every week, every month, every year, for years. You do that consistently, because if you don't, it does not work. You can't provide quality on good days and horrible service or products on bad days. And we all get that, but we don't seem to apply that same principle when it comes to marketing. And then another thing that business owners fail to recognize in their lack of marketing, and they tell me this when I talk to them on my consulting calls, is, well, I'm spending X on marketing, that should work. We're so well branded, or we're so well known. Most people aren't spending enough money on marketing. Most people are not marketing above their attrition. So they set their budget, whether it's $2,000 a month or $5,000 a month or whatever your industry norm would be. They set their budget and they build and they grow and they add customers and their revenue is climbing, and then they plateau for years, and they don't understand why they're plateaued. Well, because they're not marketing above their attrition. There's a certain number of regular customers that are going to go away, and there's nothing you can do about it. It has nothing to do with your quality. It's just life. It's just business. People don't stay forever. And so business owners don't understand that, so they start thinking they need to pour money, time, and effort in fixing our quality or improving our retention rate. Why our customers shouldn't be leaving. Well, there's a certain amount of attrition that's natural and normal to every single business. And if you don't market above the attrition, you will only spend enough marketing dollars to replace the ones that will inevitably leave. I'm not talking about the ones you shouldn't have lost. I'm not talking about the jobs you blew. Of course, we can improve internal systems to stop blowing it and running off our customers. I'm talking about attrition, which is that natural number of customers that are going to go away, and there's nothing you can do about it. Business owners get to a certain budget in their marketing that they think, well, that should be enough, And all you do is replace the ones that will leave, and that's not marketing above your attrition. Next point, failure to track and measure everything. And this seems kind of simple, and people don't always understand how it's tied to your business failure or your business success, but you have to track and measure everything that matters in your business. And this ties closely with marketing. And one of the ways that one of the places you absolutely must track and measure, besides many other places, would be your marketing cost and the cost of a customer acquisition. If you're not tracking meticulously how many prospects you receive a month or leads, and then from those leads every single month, how many leads generally will convert to at least a sale. And then one more number deeper, oftentimes people don't track, is, okay, well, how many actual sales does it take to retain one repeat customer if you are in the repeat customer business? And most of us could be in the repeat customer business, but we think we're in the one-time sale business. You know, a plumbing job doesn't have to be a one-time sale just because most people's sinks only get clogged once a year. There are so many opportunities for turning what seems to be a one-time business into a recurring business, but that's for another topic. But failing to understand, well, how many sales do I need to make to have a recurring customer, especially if you're in carpet cleaning? Those shouldn't be once a year clients. And if they are oftentimes one-time clients, well, how many one-time clients do you need to capture a client who will hire you year after year or every 6 months or whatever it takes? You can't know that number if you're not tracking and measuring everything. Then you take those statistics and you measure those numbers that you have tracked and measured, and you measure those against what you're spending on marketing. And what I have found in business over the years is trends and patterns are not wildly different from month to month unless you do something wildly different in your business every month. And most of us don't. I mean, most of us are working our business in the same manner every day, grinding it out, following the same patterns and the same habits, and generally they're good ones, and we're doing that. And we're not creating major changes in our business every month. And so you will not see dramatic up and down cycles in your business. I mean, if you're a seasonal business, you can project that so it's still a pattern. You'll know your high season and your low season, and that's pretty much the same every year. So even high and low seasons have patterns. But if you're tracking and measuring everything against your marketing spend, you will see a pattern, and it won't be wildly different. And what will emerge is your customer acquisition cost. And I talk to a lot of business owners that are successful, thriving, doing well, and they have no idea what their customer acquisition cost. And if you can't answer that right now at this very moment, if the answer is not on the tip of your tongue, you're too far away from it. Most people will say, oh, well, I can get that number if I pull a report in my computer. You should know that number. There are a handful of numbers in your business that should be always at the top of your mind. Numbers that you can spout out if anybody asks, whether it's your CPA or a sales and marketing consultant or anybody. And one of those numbers is, well, how much money do you have to spend to win one customer? And how much money did you have to spend to win a customer who converted to a repeat? And those are two different figures. I know for my own business that I spend anywhere from $75 to $85 to get one person to hire us for a cleaning. I also know that it costs anywhere from $200 to $300, but usually right around $200, to acquire one repeat customer. So it's more expensive to acquire a repeat customer because you're going to burn through several one-timers. And you have to know what that number is because the numbers never lie. They always paint that picture that you're looking for. And what is that picture? Well, why isn't my business growing? 5 years ago, we were at this size. Well, if you look back at the numbers, 5 years ago, you had fewer clients than you have now, and you spent marketing, and it increased, and it increased, and it increased to the budget you're at today, and so did your customer base. It increased, and it increased, and it increased. And in the early days, your attrition was lower. You were losing more customers. Why? Because attrition is generally a percentage of the customers that you currently have. So if I have 4% attrition, if I figured that's the attrition factor in my business, and mine happens to actually be between 3 and 4%, I have noticed year over year over year, it's about 3 to 4%. It's not wildly different. So what does that mean? When I had 300 customers or 350 customers, I was probably losing about 12 clients a month. But when I grew, and let's just figure that math just to make sure I'm right. When I grew my business, and now I don't have 3 customers recurring, I have 400 customers, well, I'm going to lose closer to, let's see, 350 times 0.03. I should have done the math beforehand. If I'm about 3% attrition, I might have been losing 10 customers a month when my business was smaller and I had fewer clients. Well, now I have 400 clients. So at 3%, I'm going to be losing more customers. So what would that look like? Well, I'm going to lose at least 12 or more a month. So I'm going to lose more customers. What does that mean? Well, just to break even on my customer base, I've got to add 12 customers every month. I have no room to grow, and I'm going to shrink if my attrition goes above my marketing. So if you don't measure that information, you won't know where to turn when your business stops working or why it isn't working. If you don't know where the problem stems from, you'll throw money in the wrong place. I constantly talk to business owners who say, oh, I don't need to spend more on marketing. We just need to hire a quality assurance manager because we lose too many customers. And we do the math and we go in and deep dive and track all this information. And then generally what emerges is you don't have a quality problem. You have a marketing problem because you've never, or you stopped marketing above your attrition because your marketing budget was at a place where you weren't comfortable. And you felt like, well, $2,500 a month should be enough to grow. Well, it isn't anymore because it got you to where you are now. So if you want to get to where you're not right now, you want to get way up here, you're going to have to increase that budget. And so you can't know where the problems are if you're not tracking and measuring everything. One more example of how tracking and measuring everything will help you fix a problem or identify where a problem is. You might discover attrition is not a problem. Marketing is definitely not a problem. You're marketing way above your attrition. You're adding customers like crazy, but maybe for years you were at 4% attrition, and all of a sudden, ever since you hired this new whoever, quality assurance manager, maybe the new customer service person, whoever, you made a change in your staffing, and all of a sudden your attrition is now 10%. What's going on? Well, it's probably not marketing. It's probably a people problem. So you wouldn't know that if you weren't checking everything. Another example how tracking and measuring everything will ensure your business works or will identify if it isn't working. You might finally grow big enough to hire a sales manager, somebody to help you with selling. Maybe you've been the best salesperson your company has ever had, and most entrepreneurs really are the best at selling their business. They're personable, they have a passion, they understand what customers want, and they do a fabulous job selling. Well, maybe your business is growing so quickly that you can't keep up with the call demand, and you're actually losing calls, you're losing prospects because you're not able to keep up with the demand. So you hire a sales manager and you train this person and you give them scripts and you teach them everything you know and you think they're doing it your way. If you're tracking and measuring everything, you will know what your conversion rate was. If you know you convert 50% of the people that call you as a prospect or a lead, then you should be able to expect a good sales manager to convert 50%. If you're tracking and measuring everything, it won't take you but 30 minutes to go pull some reports and identify who's the problem. Is that new salesperson converting 25% of the leads? Well, then it's not a lack of marketing, so don't spend money or don't throw money at the marketing as if that's the problem. if your new sales manager is converting at 50% like you, but you're losing them because of quality or chaos or internal problems, then you have an operational issue or a systems issue. So tracking and measuring everything helps you not throw money at the wrong problem and not throw money at the wrong solution. So tracking and measuring everything. This is how I run a business as an absentee owner. And I have a very intimate personal business. I own a maid service. And before I did it, I actually cannot think of a single business owner in my personal network or field that had large successful maid services where the owner was not actively involved in the day-to-day activities, because it's so personal. I mean, think about it. Sending out, 25 women all over the city to unlock someone's door, disarm their alarm, pet the dog and not get bitten, clean the house thoroughly, and then get back out the door with the door locked and nothing broken, that's challenging. And then all the drama with an all-female team. I mean, there are so many challenges that it's hard for those personal, intimate businesses to be absentee owner occupied. And so, because that was my goal, is to create a business that could run without me, whether it did or not, remain to be seen, but that was my goal. And I haven't been actively involved in my business's day-to-day activities for many, many years now. And that could not have been achieved if I didn't track and measure everything. So now when I go in, it's not to answer a phone call or to handle a customer service complaint or to figure payroll. When I go in, it's once every week to 2 weeks to meet with my office manager for 1 hour. And what do we go over? All the numbers that they still track and measure in the business. So I can pinpoint very quickly if our cost of goods sold percentages are getting out of control, or if our overhead or if our breakage number is getting out of control, if our revenues are shrinking or if they're going up. So I'm able to just spend time consulting with the manager instead of sitting in a desk chair doing the work of the business. And that cannot be done if you don't track and measure everything. And you cannot fix a broken business if you have no idea where to start. Okay, the next one, obscurity. Now this one is kind of frustrating, especially for business owners who have been around for a long time. If you have been in your community forever and you do a lot of marketing and networking, oftentimes you think that you are the most well-known company in town and everybody's heard of you. And I used to think that. I mean, I have a very mature business. We've been in business for 35 years. I was 10 years old when I started my business. But we've been around a long time, and we spend thousands of dollars each year in marketing. And I'm sorry, each month. We spend thousands of dollars each month in marketing. And so I believed I was very well branded and very well known in my community. It's not a huge community. And I hired a payroll clerk years ago. And I don't know, after working for me 2 or 3 weeks, she's in a casual conversation said, well, this is just so neat to find you guys. I love working here. And I had never heard of Buckets and Bows Maid Service before I started working here. And my mouth dropped wide open because she lived in Highland Village, the heart of my service territory, the absolute gravy boat of where I serve. I serve Flower Mound and Highland Village primarily, and then all the cities surrounding. And my mouth dropped open, and I was shocked. I'm like, are you kidding me? She said, yeah, no, I've never really seen your business. Now, she happens to be one of those people that throws away a lot of the advertisements that I advertise in. And she said, well, are you involved in any of the high school programs? Like, do you contribute to the marching band, or do you pay to have announcements at the football games? And I was like, no. My children never attended those schools, and it just never actually occurred to me. And she said, oh, yeah, I'm very heavily involved in the school district and all the activities of the schools, and there's a lot of businesses that market in that area. And I was stunned. And what I realized is, oh, my goodness, I am obscure in certain pockets of my own demographic region. And I was frustrated. I couldn't believe it. I I spend thousands of dollars and you've never heard of me? Needless to say, we started marketing and broadening our reach. We started looking for church newsletters that we could put our ads in front of. We started marketing to the local high schools. I mean, I was doing chamber networks and so forth, but we weren't as known as we thought. So oftentimes we think we're more known than we are. And you know, people don't buy products or service, they buy you. And if they don't know you, they don't associate you with your business, then your business can be invisible when you think it's more visible. Another mistake that keeps you obscure is for the owner not to build relationships in your community. And in relationships, you have all these referral partners. I love what one man says when he comes to my networking meetings. We're members of the local chambers of commerce, and I try to attend those meetings every time I can. I generally attend at least once or twice a month, unless I'm traveling. And one of the members will stand up and say to the group, the room full of 40 other entrepreneurs, and maybe some of them are his competition, but he stands up and says, "Good morning, referral partners." And he gets it. He understands that everybody in that room is not necessarily his customer. That's not why he's there. And a lot of business owners who become kind of obscure, a lot of them will stop attending networking meetings and community events because they think, oh, well, it doesn't work anyway. None of those people ever hire me. You know, they're too cheap or they're struggling in business. And what you don't understand is that's not the point of networking. It's great when they hire you. It's great when they use your service, and it does happen. But for the most part, the point of networking is to build relationships, create recognition in your community. And the point of networking, really in a nutshell, is to create referral partners. Those people don't know who to refer. They don't know who to tell their clients who they should hire in the industry. And if you're in front of them all the time, they cannot forget you. I remember joining the Chamber of Commerce about, maybe it's been 10 or 12 years ago. And I had become more sophisticated in business, and I had regretted dropping out of those networking programs, lead generating programs, years earlier when I got too busy in my business. And I stopped rejoining the chambers of commerce. I stopped attending those meetings. I had the mentality of, well, you know, those people don't hire me anyway. They're always looking for cheaper services than mine. And that was somewhat the case most of the time. And so as I got too busy, I dropped out of all those networking events, and I kind of lost touch with the community. I'm spending all my money and marketing budget on print and online advertising and so forth, which is good. You have to have elements of everything. And at some point, as I became a more sophisticated business owner, I realized that that was a mistake, that I really had no presence with the business community inside my own community. I had a big presence with consumers, but I was virtually an unknown to the business community, the people that go and network every week, the realtors, the insurance agents, the security guy, the financial planners, the bank loan officers. I didn't have a relationship with those people because I never went to those events. So I joined. After 20 years in business, I joined, regretting dropping out. And when I went to my first chamber meeting, I was so discouraged because I quickly realized there was another maid service that had been involved for years. And everybody knew her, and she was, you know, heading up this committee, and she was helping with this fundraiser. And I just felt like, oh, I had missed my window of opportunity. I'm obscure in this group. Nobody knows me, and they're all loyal to her, and they'll never transfer their loyalty to me because I can't play catch up for over the last 20 years. And I got discouraged, but I thought, but I am not quitting. If she's going to be here, I'm going to be here. And so I thought, well, I'm just going to keep coming, and I came. Month after month, I kept coming. A year or two later, I noticed she wasn't coming at all. Now I almost never see her. And now I'm one of the most popular ones in the networking event. I'm definitely the top referred maid service in this event. And I'm known within this crowd as an absolute giver, because every time they ask for anything, the answer is yes. We're holding a golf tournament. Do you have something you can donate? We're holding a silent auction. Do you have something you can donate? Yes, everything is yes. And I am completely completely plugged into that group. Why? Not because I'm trying to sell to them, because I don't want to be obscure to that business community who each one of them have dozens to hundreds of people that they talk to on a regular basis, whether it's their customers or other networking partners. They're talking to other people. And because of my giving program, I give them one more thing to talk about when they're talking shop with other people or talking about business with consumers. I give them one more thing they can talk about that has nothing to do with business. So I give them a reason to refer me, maybe inadvertently. And what is that reason? To make sure you're not obscure, I highly recommend that you create some kind of giving program in your company. And I don't mean do this for the wrong motives. What I mean is most people, most business owners that I know already give. They give back. They're very generous. I mean, most entrepreneurs are truly hardworking, giving, generous people. And they give in secret. And they write big checks to foundations and nonprofits that have meaning for them. And they help people on the side, and they give in secret. And I totally support that as an individual. We're not supposed to be boastful. I mean, when you give at church, you're not supposed to make a big deal about how much you tithe. I mean, that's wrong, because as individuals, you do give in secret. But as a corporation, your giving should never be the best kept secret. Your giving should be used as a platform to distinguish your business from your competition. Your giving, and I don't mean use it in a way, an inappropriate way. I mean, your giving should never be the best kept secret in town, because your giving, if it's known, number one, it puts pressure on your competition. Why aren't they giving? We should all be giving. Number two, it shows your leadership. If you don't want to be obscure, then stand out in the crowd. If you don't want to be obscure, then be different. Have a giving emphasis in your company, a culture of giving in some way. Embrace a cause that has meaning, and make a tangible difference in the lives of others that has nothing to do with what you sell. You'll be remembered for that. You will be talked about for that. You know, I'm sure people talk about us behind our back occasionally when we break something or do a bad job, but I want to give more reasons for people to talk about us behind our back. I want people to say, oh my goodness, do you know about my cleaning service? I heard your best friend has cancer. Well, my cleaning service gives free house cleaning services to women with cancer. You see, they weren't talking about house cleaning. Nobody said, hey, do you know a good maid service? I'm about to fire mine. Nobody said that. What happened is we're just having a conversation, and maybe the conversation was about cancer, or maybe the conversation was about how people care for another, and my company name pops up. So you begin to be less obscure and well-known when you shift the conversation. It can't always be about, well, this is what we charge, and this is how many years we've been in business, and this is how great we are, and we have 5-star reviews, and we bring all of our own equipment, whatever. It can't be all about that, because nobody's talking about that unless there's a very specific problem and somebody is saying to their neighbor, do you know a good plumber? Do you know a good electrician? Don't you want them talking about you when they don't have a problem, when you don't have to compete with all the coupons out there? And somebody says, well, you know, the plumbing service that I use, you know what they do? Or the cleaning service that I use, do you know what they do? Give people a reason to talk about you. There's a building service contractor out in Florida that I know very well, and he's a part of my nonprofit. For those of you that don't know me, I launched Cleaning for a Reason, and we provide free house cleaning services to women with cancer. And we have 1,200 maid services all over the United States and Canada that have joined our program. And I am extremely well known in my community for that giving program. And I'm able to tell people everywhere that I've helped over 20,000 women receive the gift of free house cleaning while they were battling cancer. You talk about an ah moment for prospects and an ah moment for referrers to talk about with other people. That is unbelievably powerful in making sure I am not obscure, which I am not. And I don't do it for the benefit. I just happen to reap the benefit of having a heart for others and wanting to use my business for good. And in turn, good deeds return a favor to you. And so back to my story, the gentleman in Florida cleans buildings, and he is a part of Cleaning for a reason. He is a regular sponsor and holds fundraisers. He's in the media. He's been interviewed on TV, on radio. He's been featured in the front page of his newspaper. None of that ever came his way before he had a big platform to demonstrate his giving and his heart. He's always had a giving heart. He's always been that kind of person, but it was always the best kept secret. And he's won big accounts because he includes copies of this media and some awards he's actually received in the community that he's been in for 30 years and never received an award. He's included copies of those awards and certificates and media interviews in his bid proposals when he goes out on a job. And he has won some big proposals, not because he was the cheapest guy, but because they loved what he did. I mean, statistics show people will pay more for a brand that they believe is making a difference in the lives of others because they feel like their purchase is contributing to other people's situation or contributing to the goodwill. Studies have also shown that people will, this is scary, will switch brands if they feel another brand is equal, all things equal, and is doing something that's meaningful, that's giving back using their money. They'll actually switch brands. That's scary for a business owner that's doing nothing. If you don't want to be obscure, add a serious giving program. Now, number 4, pricing. Seems too simple, but this is true. If you're priced too low, if you're desperate for every customer, no matter how much wheeling and dealing and discounts you have to get, if you price yourself too low, your business will not work. I just this week spoke to one of my consulting clients by phone, and she was in a panic because one of her competitors was priced at about 30% below her. And I said to her, the problem is you're focusing on always trying to beat your competition instead of focusing your time and energy, which is a lot more fun, focusing your time and energy on getting in front of the customers who value your service or who respect value over price. And I said, you spend so much time and energy and worry over how to compete with the cheap deals, and you're not making sure through your marketing efforts, through making sure you're not obscure, through how much money you spend and where you spend it, that you get in front of people that are not price-only customers. And I explained to her, if you're constantly trying to be cheaper and cheaper so that you don't lose a bid to the cheap services, if you're constantly trying to do that, then all you're ever doing is competing on price. And unless you're Walmart, you can't win at that game, so you might as well be the most expensive, but then you have to live up to your price. She knows she can live up to her price. Then I said, stop worrying about the cheap services. What are you going to do when the next service charges 40% below you? What about the other service that maybe charges half of what you do? First of all, they have serious capacity issues when they're way undercharging. They can't grow because when they're undercharging, there's not enough money for marketing. There's almost no money for profit if they have staff. And then if they have staff, they probably pay them so low because they don't charge enough that their employee turnover is rampant, so they can't grow. Quit worrying about them. Their business doesn't work if they're undercharging. You just make sure you stay current on what the current market price is going for professional services in your industry. She was also in the maid industry. And make sure you charge enough. But then make sure you do enough marketing to where you don't sweat it when the price-only customers say you're too expensive and move on. That's not the right fit for you. Just like Nordstrom's doesn't wring their hands and get all worried and hold a staff meeting every time Walmart holds a sale. If Walmart decided they're going to carry a low-end brand of cashmere sweaters, which they probably have, and they're going to sell them for $25, Nordstrom's isn't over there wringing their hands going, oh my goodness, how are we going to compete with that? Our cashmere sweaters are $350. No, they don't care. They don't pay attention. they're not going after the Walmart shoppers. And there's nothing against Walmart. I shop there. And I shop a little bit at Nordstrom's. But there are plenty of people that only shop at Nordstrom's. There are plenty of people that would never go buy a nice sweater at a Walmart or a Target. They would only buy their clothes at Neiman's or Nordstrom's. Nordstrom's knows who their customer is. They don't worry about trying to chase customers who don't belong in their store, who will thumb their nose at their prices, who will not appreciate the value that they provide. They're not after those customers. And they spend their marketing dollars and their marketing efforts getting in front of a different group. You cannot be priced too low. You have to charge what you're worth. Let's go to the next one. You can't fix your business or succeed in business if your problems are your people. This is a serious problem nowadays. I remember, goodness, it was probably 25 years ago, I had a client who we had to call her way too often on a Friday with absolute embarrassment and lots of apologies to say, I hate to do this to you, but we can't come and clean your house today because we had another person quit without notice. Or we had 3 people call in sick. We had so many employee problems, it was a nightmare. I fixed those when I hired a very expensive consultant, and I discovered that those people problems were a result of systems in my own business that did not work, and I kept blaming it on everything else. I thought my employee problems were because I hire a lot of women, and women have children that get sick, or I hire a lot of people who have car trouble, so their engines blow up and have to quit work, or I have a lot. There were all these reasons why I believed I had people problems, and I didn't realize it was a system failure. My business was broken because the model didn't work, and I was following a model that would never work. And when I changed that, my people problems went away. I've also had to learn the hard way when it comes to people problems that one bad employee can spoil the whole group. It's like one bad apple can spoil the whole barrel. One influential bad employee can bring down morale like you wouldn't believe. And Kevin O'Leary said, he's a Mr. Wonderful on Shark Tank, said at a conference I heard him speak at recently, and oh my goodness, did this statement ring true. He said, one of the 10 things I've learned in business is the first inkling you get to fire someone was probably right. Now, I get he wasn't trying to tell us to rush to judgment and not investigate. It's not what he was saying. And I think everybody understands that as business owners, we really work hard at not firing somebody because it's a pain in the neck to replace people. It's sometimes, and this is the problem, sometimes we hang on to a bad employee because we feel like it's more painful to replace them. It's like, oh my goodness, she knows her job so well, and I don't have time to step in and take over for her. Or, oh, my word, he knows my business so well, or he knows that skill so well, it's going to be really hard to retrain. And so we delay the inevitable because it seems more painful to get rid of a bad employee than to just tolerate it. And that's actually not true. And I have learned this the hard way more than one time, that when I tolerate a bad employee, somebody I should have let go, and I know it in my heart, but I choose the easy road instead of the smart road, I always pay for it more later. So instead of investing a year in this person that I think, oh my goodness, she's worked here a year, she knows everything, it's going to be so hard to retrain her replacement, it's going to take me months to get the new person on board. What I don't realize is 6 years later, I finally get fed up, she's done too much damage to my company, and I fire her. Now I've invested 6 years in the wrong person. Now I've made the wrong person an expert. And I could have spent the last 5 years on the right person. That's a huge mistake. We all do it. Here's what we do. We hire fast because we're always putting out fires. We hire fast and then we fire slow, and we have that backwards. We need to hire slow, vet them carefully, and fire fast. If you've worked here for 2 months and you're already showing that I made a mistake, why on earth would I constantly give you pep talks and warnings and yada, 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 and a year later I've invested a year in you, and you're just never going to deliver? And so we need to deal with our people problems. It's not as painful as we think. And oftentimes their replacement is actually 10 times better than they were earlier on. It's just something we have to deal with. It's not fun. Another issue with the people problems is oftentimes we're starving people, and we have unbelievable turnover because we have been burned in the past. Here's what drives me crazy. Business owners tend to copy corporate America, and we embrace this longevity pay system, which I am so against. And we basically, give somebody a substantial raise at 1 year, and then another good raise at 2 years, and then another good raise at 3 years, and really they're making the top pay maybe at 5 years. We do that all the time. I hate longevity pay, and I think it does not incentivize performance in any way. In fact, I personally think it is a tool of fostering mediocrity. What I prefer, and I've heard a recent presidential candidate talk about this a lot, and I totally agree with it, is meritocracy pay. Whatever that looks like in your company, it's different for every different person. It could be commission pay, it could be sales bonuses, goal achievement bonuses, whatever it is. Here's what I think we have backwards, and this is part of our people problem, is when you use longevity pay as your system, then a good worker may have to wait a year to make a decent wage, or 2 years, or 5 years. And if you look at your longest term employees, and you're frustrated with employee turnover, and your longest term employees who've been there 5 years are making this, and they're not going anywhere, and they're kind of mediocre, and at times you want to wring their necks or fire them. But you know what? They're not quitting on you, so you keep them around. They're at the top pay because they've been there 5 years. But you've hired somebody who started 9 months ago, and they blew past your top paid employee 6 months ago. They've outperformed them miles. They're faster. They're better. They have a better attitude. They're much more dependable. They grind out more. They win more sales. They clean more jobs. Whatever it is. But they've only been with you 9 months. You're afraid to make sure they make top pay because, oh my goodness, then I need to really raise the mediocre one that I'm tired of and give that person a bigger raise. So we're afraid of rewarding the one that actually is performing because we can't go and double the pay of the 5-year person who's not really a good employee. We have it backwards. Meritocracy pay says, you know what, when you come to work for me, you give yourself a raise, and you can have that raise anytime you want. It's all on you. If you want to work here 3 years and not give yourself a good raise, all right, as long as you don't blow it and, violate too many policies and don't get terminated, that's fine if you don't want to give yourself a raise. But if you're a hard worker, you're aggressive, you grind it out, you show up, you're dependable, you have a great attitude, you outperform everybody else, you're a top performer within a certain period of time, guess what? You go to top pay. What if you created meritocracy pay? That is a system I implemented in my maid service years ago. Before I implemented, I had never met another maid service that had that type of pay program. We call it pay for performance. And basically, I don't care if you've been here 3 months or 3 years. Your pay is based on how much you grind out, to put it crudely. Your pay is based on performance. And I can control quality by not giving you enough work for you to perform if you start hurrying and cutting corners and delivering sloppy work. So there's ways to control quality if you pay people to perform instead of pay people just because they show up for 5 years. You want to fix your people problems? Don't starve them to death. Don't hire with these low pay standards, capture a lot of losers, and then try to figure out a way how to turn a loser into a winner. Instead, hire with the promise of top pay as soon as they perform at top levels. And for some, that could be within a month or 3 months or 9 months or whatever your time frame is for your type of industry. That kind of pay rewards and inspires because I can work my tail off knowing that I worked harder than that other person and I make as much as she does or more, as opposed to I outperformed my teammate or my coworker, but because he or she's been there for 5 years, she makes a lot more than me. It's very demotivating. It's definitely not rewarding. All right, differentiation. If you don't differentiate your company, it is a tough market out there, and the internet's made it even harder to compete, then you will not survive. You have to differentiate your company. You have to stand out in a crowd. And guess what? Everybody looks alike. And guess what? Your customers assume we're all alike. When people are looking for a cleaning service, what do they want? A price. They have no idea that there's a whole lot more to us than the price we charge, and that they need to know, how are we different? If all you're doing is selling your features, well, we bring our supplies. Well, we're insured and bonded. Oh, we do background screens. Oh, we use green cleaning products, and we've been in business for 30 years. If all you're doing is selling your features, you're not going to win as many accounts, and you're going to definitely be competing more often on price than you want to be. Understand that when you differentiate, you learn how to sell solutions, because people aren't buying prevention. And when you try to sell them a list of what you're all about, you're actually selling prevention. Honestly, they don't care that you do screening, background screening. I mean, they do, but they really don't, because they assume everybody does. You and I know everybody doesn't, but they don't know that, and that's not the most concerning thing oftentimes to the customer you're in front of. You got to know what they want. You got to speak their language, and you've got to sell solutions instead of prevention. Bragging about your background checks to somebody who doesn't care, who assumes everybody does it, is trying to sell them a prevention. You know, it's basically, without saying it, you're saying, don't worry, we won't steal from you. They're not worried about that in the first place. They're assuming you won't. You can call that ignorance on the consumer part. That is possibly the case. But if that's not what they're worried about, then why are you selling them the wrong thing? What are they buying? They're buying solutions. You'll differentiate from your competition when you are able to figure out what is their pain and how do I solve it. They'll pay anything to have their pain solved. I will give you an example so I can move quickly on to the next point. One example. Recently at speedcleaning.com, our electricity went down because of some internal things that we were plugging into the system. It was overwhelming it. What happened? All of our internet and phones went down for a full day. We lost thousands of dollars in orders that we could not fulfill that day. Do you think we were out there looking on Groupon for a coupon for the cheapest electrician in town? Nope. We called the one that we knew enough about that said we can get out there today. And that's who we called. And honestly, we didn't care what it cost because we were losing thousands of dollars. Do you know what your customer's pain is? Your customer's pain oftentimes is not the price. And if it is, then you're in front of the wrong customers. You need to get in front of people that if they don't get your service, and if you don't do it right the first time, there is trouble for them. So in our case, if we hired the wrong electrician, if we went bargain hunting, it might take us 2 or 3 days to get someone who would show up. And what if he didn't show when he said he would? And what if he got out there and he's like, oh man, this is really above my skill set. You're going to have to call an electrician or a certified. No, I didn't have time for that. My pain was, help me stop losing money, get my electricity back on. You can't differentiate if you're always selling what everybody else is selling. Everybody else is selling prevention. Oh, we use green cleaning products. We do background checks. We're insured for up to $5 million in case there's a problem. Nobody's buying prevention. Find out what your customers need and how you can solve their problem. Do you have an executive in town that you need to help make look good? He's buying that. All right, let's move to the blame game, number 7. I had to learn this lesson the hard way myself. We got to stop blaming everything and everybody on our business not working. Years ago, I went into the blame game right after 9/11, and my business started shrinking. Phones did not ring for 6 straight weeks, literally. After 9/11, the day after 9/11, my phone stopped ringing for maid service, except the calls from customers saying, oh my goodness, they're talking about layoffs. Oh my word, my husband just got laid off. You know what? Things are getting really crazy in the economy. We've decided to cut back. Stock market did some crazy stuff. The airline industry had problems. The dot-coms were busting up, and people were in a panic mode. The economy went into a spiral, and it really began to move faster, at least in our region of the country, right at the 9/11 event, but it started before that. Guess what I did for 3.5 years? I blamed the economy on my shrinking business. And it was true that first year, but it wasn't the truth the second year. And I spent 3.5 years blaming the economy. And I did what a lot of business owners do, and you'll hear yourself in this story. I took comfort in having conversations with other businesses that were about my size, that were boo-hooing about, oh my goodness, we have lost so many customers this year. I don't know if we're going to be able to hang on. We had to sell off a fleet of our cars. We have half the customers we had last year, yada, yada, yada. And everyone I talked to was telling me the same sob story. I would talk to a window washer. I would talk to a carpet cleaner. I would talk to a plumber or an electrician. Everybody was saying, we've had to cut back on our marketing. We've had to cut back on our expenses. I moved out of my big fancy office with a giant corner window into the cheap side of town and literally cut my square footage in half, laid off some unnecessary administrative staff, and I hung on for dear life thinking, okay, we'll bottom out next year and we'll grow back up. Didn't happen. I cut my marketing. Didn't happen. We shrunk more. We shrunk for 3.5 years. When I finally woke up and realized, and I'm not going to tell you all the long details because we don't have enough time, but I woke up and realized one day through a series of other events that, oh my goodness, I've been blaming the economy on my failure. And all along, it was me. Yes, the events of 9/11 and the extreme economy change did launch changes in my business that started the spiral. But what continued the spiral was my lack of identifying that it was time to change. I had to change my game plan. I had to stop blaming the economy and shift my program. And when I figured that out, and one of my problems was I kept cutting my marketing because I couldn't afford to pay the bill. And that was the wrong place to cut. It was funny. The smaller my marketing budget, the smaller my customer base. And I kept thinking, oh my gosh, the economy is getting worse. No, my lack of marketing was getting worse. And so once I figured out, oh my, it's not the economy, it's me, I started putting dramatic changes in my business that helped me with overhead expenses and cost of labor, and then I increased my marketing, put it on a credit card so that I could do it. Guess what? Within a year, we were back above where we were when the decline started. Stop blaming everything else. It's not your cheap competitors. It's not the economy. It's not that there's too much competition. It's me. It's not them. When you realize that, it's liberating, because if it's them, you can't do a thing about it. But if it's you, you can change you, turn things around, and start growing again. And then lastly, too many entrepreneurs that are very driven don't really get this. But sometimes you've got to learn to delegate or you will die. In other words, you better fire yourself. And I had to learn that years ago, that sometimes you have to fire yourself. And I don't mean you become an absentee owner. That may not be a fit for where your business is. But that means you can't handle everything just because you're the best at everything. You may be the best at sales calls and handling customer service and this and that. You may be the best at creative design and the best at marketing. But there comes a certain point, if you want your business to continue to grow or not shrink backwards, you've got to fire yourself from different positions in your company. But guess what? Once you fire yourself, you have to walk away. Surround yourself with the best people you can find. Delegate authority, and then don't interfere as long as the policies you've decided upon are being carried out. That calls for delegation. Then step back. You have to abandon perfection. Yes, if you did it yourself, it would probably be right 100% of the time because you have a lot more invested than maybe a $15 an hour employee. But you have to abandon perfection. As long as people are following your policies and the results are there, you're not losing customers and losing revenue, then let it go. Yeah, you could make it, maybe you could have done it perfectly. But if your staff can do it very well, you need to abandon perfection, replace it with excellence. People oftentimes think if they abandon perfection, that they will substitute it with mediocrity. And after all, that's what my competition does, and that's why we excel. You don't have to replace perfection with mediocrity. Think about replacing perfection with excellence. That's a standard that your staff can duplicate. They're never going to duplicate perfection. You're never going to have freedom. And if you don't fire yourself at some level in your business, you will never be able to enjoy the quality of life that your business was supposed to provide. So delegate. It isn't just wise, it's attractive because it is the opportunity for quality of life, whatever that looks like for you. Now, I know I've gone a little bit long, so I think we need to open it up right now for Q&A. Hopefully you guys are there.
And we'll do that at this time. If you have any questions, you can go ahead and type them in the box. And while we're waiting for that, reminder to everybody that we've recorded the session, and so afterwards you'll receive a recording of this. So if you want to go back and review any of the material, you'll be able to do that. Debbie, we do have one question from Ed, and it goes back to your tracking. When you're talking about tracking, what are some practical means or methods of tracking?
I am so glad you asked that, because so many people make this so hard, they don't do it. If you have to have an app, if you have to have special software, if you have to find it in a spreadsheet somewhere on your computer but can't remember where it is, or, oh, I haven't had time to open that spreadsheet, you've made it too hard. I like simplicity in business because that's about the only thing that we have time to deal with, because we are so busy doing what we do. So make it simple. You know what I do? This sounds so old-fashioned. Some people won't do it, but it's so simple it gets done. We have forms that we create in our office, and we print them off and we put them on everybody's desks, and we tell each employee what is the important number that you must track, and it's different for different people. My scheduler, she has to track how many jobs were booked every single day and how many jobs were completed every day, and she knows what her goal is. I want 50 jobs completed a day. That means you better not start with booking 50, because what if 2 people cancel? So that's her number that she has to track every single day, and she puts it in a notebook and looks at it every day and compares it to last week, last month, and last year. I have another piece of paper that we use for tracking. It's a lead sheet. It's very simple. It's printed. Nobody writes leads and comments from prospects on sticky notes or scrap paper. Everyone has a lead notebook, and when they have a prospect they're talking to, they grab the notebook, they open it up, or every salesperson, they open it up and they go to the lead sheet, and there's questions to ask to keep you on track and on script, and then there's percentages that you can figure at the end of the month. So printed forms that you create in your office that help you track the most information. Make it easy. Put it on the desk. And then accountability. If you just tell people to do it, you'll find out 6 months later they only had time to do it when they're not busy, which is never. So we have accountability. You have to turn that in either every single day in some situations, or every single week. And then it goes to somebody who's responsible to make sure it was done, filled out correctly, filled out consistently. And so that would be the manager. Keep it simple.
We've got another question from Aline. He's asking, how fast should a business grow on a yearly basis?
Well, I think every industry is different, but I think we see similarities in industries. You know, 2 to 5% is actually quite inspiring. 10% is pretty aggressive. And if you're a startup, you know, it's easy to double nothing. It's easy to double small. So it depends on where you're at in your business. For instance, when I take on a new coaching client and they tell me some other coach can help them double their business in a year, oftentimes my answer is, well, who couldn't double 30 accounts? You don't need skill to double 30 accounts. You know, that same business coach is not going to help you double $1 million business in 1 year. It kind of depends on where you started. But if you have reached the level that you've always wanted to be or always thought you needed to be at, then probably 2 to 5% growth is good. Here's probably the number that's more magical. If you want to grow instead of maintain, because some people just want to maintain, they don't want to shrink, but they're really at a very healthy size. If you want to grow instead of maintain, your growth has to be above your attrition. And if you know what your attrition is, let's say you know you lose 3% of your customers. Well, if all you do is grow by 3% or add 3% a year, you will stay the same. So you need to grow by 6% to grow above your attrition, or 10% if you want to be aggressive. So you've got to find out what your attrition is, and then set a goal to grow 2, 3, 4% above it, unless you're looking for aggressive growth.
Okay, I don't see any other questions at this time.
Well, that was easy, and I'm only 3 minutes over. Sorry for going so long. I hope everybody enjoyed this, and look forward to the next one.
And I take that back. We do have a late question coming in here. If you could just answer this one also. When should a new business reach to its maximum?
Well, I don't know that any business should think that there is a maximum. I think there are common maximums within every industry because most people don't know how to get above it. So as an example, in the cleaning industry of maid service, 93% of all maid services in this country max out or never reach $500,000 a year in sales. 93%. So it's safe to assume that 93% would feel like, wow, you know, if I get to 500,000 a year in sales, I'm doing good. It's a small industry. But I don't agree with that. So there's about less than 2% of us out there that hit $1 million a year. And I don't have anything magical in my company that those people don't have other than I know what to do and they don't know. I'm not smarter. My company doesn't clean better. I just know what to do to get me there and they don't know. So I don't know that there is necessarily a ceiling. Now, sometimes there's a ceiling because of population and demographics. So if you really want to go above the ceiling, you've got to relocate, you know, another office or create a satellite office or create some add-on services that you've never offered before or create some subscription type services that your industry doesn't usually offer and increase your sales that way. So, you know, make sure you know your industry's numbers. Don't be in the dark about that. And I know my industry's numbers. And I do know that there are no $10 million standalone maid services in this country. They don't exist. So I probably will have to do something that no one has ever done for me to have that $10 million business. But make sure you know your industry and make sure you haven't set your goals too low, because most of the time we could have blown past that plateau that we think we're at.
Sounds good. I don't see any other questions, Debbie. And just on behalf of Grandy and Associates, I'd like to thank everybody coming to our Business Advantage webinar today. Again, thank Debbie Sardone for her participation. And with that, Debbie, I'll let you have the last word and say goodbye to our audience.
Well, thank you, everybody. And if you want to look me up, you can find me at debbiesardone.com or find me on LinkedIn or go visit speedcleaning.com. Love to hear from you. Good luck, everybody.